It's saved. G'day, community, and welcome to the Jock, Reynolds Supercoach podcast. I am Lekdog. I am joined on this Monday night by the one and only, one of the oldest, or longest tenured Supercoach experts, Barron Von Crow. How are you?
I'm feeling very old today, thank you, Lek.
Sorry, apologies. But you are a stalwart of the website. And before we start, thank you to Telebeats for the music. Mate, you've been killing it in your Around the Grounds article.
Thank you very much.
Killing it.
Thank you very much. I hope it's helped you and others who've read it. Thank you to all those who have been reading and commenting.
Oh, it's amazing. For those of you who aren't as well educated, it is a weekly article that Barron does where he looks at all the rookie-priced players in Supercoach and how they performed at AFL or Sandfall/VFL/Waffle level. It's amazing. All right, as we get into this round, community, this one's going to be a little bit shorter, this podcast, a little less structured. Time constraints are working against us this week, so no hour-long special, but Barron, I promise we will get you back on for an hour-long special. Mate, the carnage is already coming through, and it's Monday night.
Yeah, I guess it gives us a good heads up on what to expect. We can maybe plan a little bit better. Thursday night teams is probably the perfect time for them to bring that back because I don't think anyone is going to be able to go through this week. Well, you might be if you're really lucky, but just trades out the wazoo going to be happening this week, I think.
The number one thing, which is, he was a hot property last week. Everyone who traded him was feeling good when he took a massive hanger and scored 108 Supercoach points. Shai Bolton got pissed. This is coming from my perspective and reading of the situation. Got pissed at a nightclub, got in a fight, and has broken his wrist. He'll miss 2 to 3 weeks, if we are to believe the injury report. Daniel Rioli was also there. But the news for us from Supercoach is no Shai Bolton for the next 2 to 3 weeks. Baz, if you are aiming to bring him in, obviously we don't. We now can wait a couple of weeks. But what do we do if we had just bought him in?
Well, I was one of those people who had just bought him in. 2 to 3 weeks, I can't justify trading him for that short amount of time, even though I am kind of short up forward. So I'll probably try and work around it for those 2 to 3 weeks rather than swap him to someone else.
Yeah, this is probably a good thing. They've got quite a few injuries. It's not a good thing, but it's probably a good thing for the likes of a Riley Collier-Dawkins, who some coaches went early on during the week. He didn't have an amazing game, I don't think. Scored 43 Supercoach points. But now there's enough spots in that team that he's probably going to hold on for at least a couple more weeks, break even of negative 43. So if you do need to trade someone in, maybe this opens the way for RCD to stay in the team even longer than perhaps we thought he was going to.
Yeah, that seems likely at this stage. Richmond just have so many injuries that I don't think they'll think about unnecessarily dropping people. So if you're healthy and you've been in the side, you might just stay in for another month or two.
Now, this is disappointing for Collingwood supporters that Jeremy Howe is going to miss most of the season with a hamstring injury, which sucks. You'd think this would be reasonably good news for Nathan Murphy. However, Baz, he got knocked out on the weekend. He will be sitting out for 12 days. So he's going to miss this weekend. We hope that he gets back in after that. But if you traded him in, he was looking all right before he went down.
Yeah, he was looking pretty good. He'd scored solid all 3 games he's played. Like 50 is probably a decent result this year from what we've gotten down back. But yeah, that 12-day concussion is the best thing for him probably. Can't hurt to keep him out from a head knock, but just a bit awkward for Supercoach. But again, if it's only 1 week, I couldn't justify moving him out again.
No, I think you definitely hold him. I personally am in a position where if Tom Highmore doesn't play, I will have a donut because I had to swing Rory Laird into the midfield to bring in Murphy, which is just a lovely little piece of manoeuvre I've done that continues my fantastic season. I reckon while we're spitballing here, I see that he's one of the most traded in players so far this week. Darcy Moore at 365 grand. Maybe this means that his stint in defence continues. He scored 130. We saw him score 2 tons at the start of the year. If he can stay in defence, and maybe this helps him, is he someone we look at?
This year, I think you definitely have to, because the cash generation from the rookies just isn't there to be able to say, I'm going up and down to primos to rookies. So we got to start looking at some more mid prices to fit in, like Stephen May was last week. I can't see them throwing him forward again. That would just be stupidity of the highest order. So he was one to consider if you can get him in, because he can score 100s. So he might not do it every week, but to have a guy in your defense right now that you can say if he has a good game, he could score 115, 120, that's good value, I think.
Yeah, and obviously there's coaches out there who have already completed their defense, so won't be looking at him. But yeah, at 365, I think there's some upside to pick him. There's another guy in defense I want to talk about, but I was just going to keep looking at the injuries. We saw the Supercoach Brains Trust convince themselves, that's the Herald Sun group, which I'm a part of, convince themselves that Jake Stringer was a good idea. And we went on, Patch and I went on the Panic Room Live, which, by the way, Panic Room, an awesome article that Foz organises on the website. We now do that, a live video for half an hour or an hour on lockout, not lockout. Well, I don't know what we're going to do now. It might actually be the Thursday night when teams drop. Anyway, we'll work through that. It's on the Herald Sun Supercoach Facebook page and the Jock Reynolds Facebook page, so we do that. But we talked about it there. We said you couldn't pick a worse player than Jake Stringer. Jake Stringer could now miss up to a month with a hammy. Geez, that's going to sting if you bought him in. And Baz, he's not very expensive, and you'd hate to have to use 2 trades on him. But if you got him, I think we're binning him, right?
You'd have to, and you might want to consider listening to Patch more. If you can diss one of your own players, then you should listen to that advice. That's my rule.
We're going to talk to you about one of your players very He scored 22 points for Stringer before going down with injury. He actually did jump slightly in cash because his break even was like 18 or something. So he's 327 grand. If he's out for a month, I'm absolutely binning. And just while we're on it, apparently Jai Caldwell is reasonably close to coming back.
No, I think they said on him.
The opposite.
Yes, he was going in for surgery.
Right.
Which would maybe take him out for the rest of the year.
That's what happens when I just glanced and said, I read former Giant Caldwell is well on his way into rehab. I was like, oh, that's good. No, was.
Yeah, so at the end of training session late last week, he suffered a high-grade hamstring strain. So maybe not surgery, but if it's the same hamstring he'd already hurt, I guess that puts him back again.
That sucks. So that's another... obviously, no one still has him, but they're 2 guys that if they're in your team, I think we've got to trade. I guess the benefit of Stringer being so cheap is that maybe you can stash him on your bench, but geez, I feel not great about having him in my team. One thing I did miss, Baz, from the Richmond game was Shane Edwards injured as well. So rolled his ankle. If we assume he's not playing, Riley Coley-Dawkins, again, appears to be the trade-in of the week. I think, Baz, just to go through this, because we don't have this one as planned out as I'd like, we'll just go through each of the games, touch on the talking points and the trade-in, trade-out options. I think that might be the way to continue this podcast. So we've covered the Richmond side of things for the most part. Jaden Short was doing his seagull best again. The Geelong side of things, Baz, Tommy Hawkins went big. I like Tommy Hawkins as an option. He's always ends up in the top 10 for forwards. Jeremy Cameron, though, He was the one that is getting coaches excited, scored 137, kicked 6 goals, and is one of the most traded in players this week. 405k. Could you go up from a stringer to a Jeremy Cameron? Are you going to do that? Or is Jeremy Cameron worth considering? We've seen key position players kind of drop off the last couple of weeks, scoring-wise.
Yeah, it's when you're in that position with Stringer, you probably don't have a lot of options. So I think that's one you would have to consider, just because he can go big the same way we were saying about Darcy Moore. You can't be too super picky this year. So I think fair few people had Hawkins in their sides last year as a primo forward option. So you could maybe consider Cameron as sort of this year's cheaper version of that.
Yeah, Hawkins is 70 grand more this year, has a history of being a really good super coach. Score has been a bit up and down this year, but a 149 on the weekend. If I was going to take a gamble on either one, I'd probably go Jeremy Cameron, save 70k, just with the way the year's panning out. The other big name from this game is Cam Guthrie, who pushes his price over the 600k mark with yet another ton. Scored a 117. Mitch Duncan scored 125 as well. And Tom Stewart, I thought he deserved a bit more than 92, but a lot of coaches traded him last week, so that's good to see. Also, a few injuries around that Geelong side on the weekend, so let's wait and see if they can get some rookies in. Don't even know if they actually have rookies on their list, Baz.
No, they tend to not play them, and the way they've gone with Jordan Clark and the like, you might not be too excited about picking him, but then someone like Zach Guthrie seems to get a game every damn week, and I still can't figure that one out. But
he's probably doing a job.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Gold Coast v St Kilda. Took Miller was talk of the town. My partner Cassie actually selected him at the start of the year, and he's been dominating. She's much better at Supercoach than me. However, he has accepted a suspension this week, so if you were looking to move on him, wait a week. You obviously do not trade him if he's yours. But Oleg Markov, Baz, also turned up, and he's quietly having a decent year. Another defender, so probably not someone that coaches out there are looking at, because most of them have a full team. But 398k, break even of 50. Has had a couple of down scores, but has had a 106, a 92, a 113 on the weekend. If they can get the ball into his hands, I don't mind him as a selection.
Yeah, I think that's a D6 option there. Like for my team, for example, I've got 5 defenders I'm already set. So if I was looking at finalizing my D6 with the limited money I have, he would definitely be one I would look at.
Yeah, he's still growing as a player in their team this year. And I think if I had to choose between him and say Darcy Moore, I'd probably go with Darcy Moore because he's cheaper. But that's kind of where we're at this point in the year. We'll look at St Kilda, who just got a win over Gold Coast. Jack Billings was a beast. Jack Steele, if you've waited on Jack Steele and you're going to be able to get up to an Uber Primo in the midfield, he posted a 110, and he's starting to he feels like he had a bit of rust on him, old Steele, but he's awful. He's now 582k, 24k price drop on the weekend. Break even is still 145, but if we can target him for the next week or two, I think he's a very, very attractive option.
Yeah, he was one I was planning on upgrading to this week for Errol Golden, but then that was Sunday afternoon thoughts. Monday afternoon thoughts have changed completely. So
yeah, because we've got 8 holes to fill in the rest of the team now. But I guess he's had a kind of disappointing season from a Supercoach point of Steele Jack's point of view from Jack Steele, but he's had 2 scores of 91, and they're his lowest scores. He just hasn't been hitting those 130s we probably expected him to. Did have a 150 early in the season. You can probably hold one more week on him, but I think get ready to strike on a 560, 550k Jack Steele if we can.
Yeah, that's good value for him, I think, with what he's capable of producing.
Oh, he's a trouser arousing human being. Does anyone else from St Kilda stand out for you? Rowan Marshall, he turned up 107. His price will dip. I'll pull up his price in just a second for you, Baz. And Hunter Clark, another 95. Another guy's flying under the radar. I know Phantom was big on him. And 2 guys that are seem to be gelling when St Kilda is gelling.
Yeah, they're doing okay. I'm not as excited about anyone on St Kilda as Jack Steele, but there's options there you could consider if you wanted to go for a point of difference on your team.
Yeah, Rowan Marshall, he actually did gain $4,000 on the weekend. Break even goes to 124. Since his return, he has posted 132, 86, and a 107. He's one that I'm interested in. I'd like him if I was someone who was running Tom Hickey at R2 or something like that. You can bring him to your forward line. We know that he scores reasonably well, even when Paddy Ryder's in the team, and I think we could be pretty comfortable bringing him in. The only issue I have with him, Baz, is spending over $500,000 on a forward at this point in the season feels kind of dangerous and maybe a little bit wasteful.
Yeah, I would consider him an okay option as a forward just because he has runs on the board. And this year, the forward line is just, it's like if you said at the start of the year, oh, I'm going to pick Jack Zeeble, Jarman Impey, as my two best forwards, you would go, okay, can you pass the blunt over this way, please? So.
What's a blunt, Baz? I'm not sure what you're talking about.
It's something that someone at school once told me about, but I have never actually seen in real life.
The other name from St Kilda that people are talking about is Ryan Burns, who played his second game for the year. He posted a score of 62. His break-even goes to negative 40. He is a midfielder rookie, projected to jump 40-ish K this week. Here's the thing, Baz. So we reckon Riley Collier-Dawkins is probably the safer mid option of the two. But I think this is going to be a really good week for people to double downgrade. I think there's not a hell of a lot of rookies coming around next week. And while we know that there are some rookies playing, maybe we need to look at two of Ryan Burns and Riley Collier-Dawkins.
Yeah, I think you need to, especially if you're in a situation like me where 3/4 of my bench isn't playing. So if you need to start generating some cash somewhere, the double downgrade is definitely an option to look at, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, obviously, Thomas Highmore will surely play this week, Baz.
Nothing could be surer. If you can go down to your local bookie and put $100 on that definitely happening, smart investment.
Oh, goodness gracious me. Let's push on. Let's run through this, Baz. Tim Taranto owners are being rewarded. He's doing what we thought Tim Taranto would do, and that's scoring well. He scored 126 on the weekend. And, would you believe it, Josh Kelly had 30 disposals, and he played in the midfield, and he also kicked 2 goals. And Tom Green played in the midfield, scored 104 Supercoach points, and they won, Baz.
That's you know how they were talking about the coaching genius of Nathan Buckley by putting Darcy Moore back to defence? That's some coaching genius from Liam Cameron, playing your midfielders in the midfield. Whoa.
Well, you were saying it, Baz. You'd love to be able to go into work, fuck something up, and then fix it and say, look how good I am.
Yeah. That's the new way I'm going to start doing my job now. Just break things and then change things that were working fine and then put them back and go, did you see that move I just pulled? That's just, I'm operating on another level here.
We expect Mummy to rest this weekend and Matty Flynn to play. It seems to be the way they're operating. So if you've still got Flynn on the bench, probably keep him another week rather than looking to trade down to a Jordan Sweet or something like that. And Lockie Keefe is back out on the park for the second week. Backed up his 83 with just a 74. So he's still working his way into it. Essentially, hasn't had a preseason. He's going to get very cheap very quickly. His break even is 177. He's going to drop 30 grand this week and probably another 30 grand the week after. So he'll be close to 500 real soon. One we're going to want to watch, Baz.
Definitely for sure.
On the Essendon side of things, there's some interesting names. Zach Merritt played really well, 37 disposals for 131 Supercoach points. Darcy Parish, who a few coaches traded in that sort of breakout game he had the other day, a few weeks ago. Another guy that, playing a midfielder in the midfield, who would have thought it produces good scores. So if you jumped on, I think given the amount of injuries, and I'm not sure how far Dylan Shield is away, but Darcy Parish, he could be an option, although the value's not quite there anymore because he has increased in price a couple of times.
Yeah, but I like the way he's played. He's doing a nice split of his contested work, using the ball well, getting clearances. He's avoiding too many mistakes, which can always kill the scores in Supercoach. So, yeah, I don't mind him at all.
And if we're looking at Essendon players, what about a Nick Hind? We talked about forwards. We need some value in forwards. Now, he has increased in $100,000 this year, priced at $432,000 with a break even of 73. His 3-round average is 87. His 5-round average is 91, 95 on the weekend, 89 the week before against the Blues. How desperate are we looking if we're looking at Nick Hind, or do we think he's actually value?
I wouldn't rule anything out in terms of just looking at it this week or for the rest of the year. So, yeah, have a look at it, but not a move I would go for, but not saying
confident.
No, I'm not confident, no, but I'm not saying outright that would be a stupid thing to do because what has this year thrown at us,
Oh, it's been a nightmare. We've had plenty of players not play. These Essendon rookies, for the most part, are still making cash too. So you probably don't need to jump off coaches at home. I know people are looking for reasons to upgrade, but while we still have cash generation, I'd be looking at holding as many of these guys as we can. I reckon Nick Cox is probably the one to jump off if you've still got him. He scored 43 in the weekend. His break even goes up to 74. And I should mention that Jordan Ridley, break even is 119, scored 84 on the weekend. He's still coming back from that. Was it a concussion that kept him out a week?
I think it was, yeah.
So he's still coming back. He scored 31 in that game where he got knocked out, 87 last week, 84 this week. He's about to drop in price again to about 470 grand. So once again, defenders, if you're looking to upgrade, we've probably got plenty of options.
Yeah, that's kind of annoying because that was like the one line everyone stacked for the start of the year.
Oh, it's
at least so, and
frustrating.
then all the good downgrade options come in defense. So, yeah, a bit annoying. But again, if you've still got lead in your defense, that might be a way to free up a defender spot to downgrade to, rather than looking for a more expensive midfielder.
Yeah, the way the season's gone, Baz, I was expecting people to start lead in the midfield, stack up in defence where we thought the rookies and cash gen would be, and then swing lead back into defence. I think he ends up being a midfield option for everyone purely because there's way more value in defence than any other position.
Yeah, that's the way it's looking at the moment.
All right, let's jump over to North Melbourne v Collingwood. Collingwood just defeated North Melbourne 94-76. Zeeble turned up again, doing Zeeble things. This is a man that I completely shut down on the Panic Room Live. But Aaron Hall scored 113 points, 37 disposals. You ignore his injured game this year, and he's putting together quite a run. My issue with him is I mean, I've got many issues with him, to be honest, but he never stays on the park. He's been inconsistent before, but his scoring this year, Baz, is... Are we considering Aaron Hall?
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on him just because he's not the type of player I would normally look at in terms of he's largely an uncontested player, and I don't like those as much in Supercoach's Dream Team. But again, you have to consider all options this year. You could say his spot is safe for sure in North Melbourne's side because they don't really have anyone left.
I mean, you could run out for them pretty
comfortably. Yeah, their VFL side just got smashed by like 120 points, and it's maybe 4 or 5 listed AFL players playing for them. So they've got no depth at all to be bringing guys in and out. So you would think he's safe. And that will just throw as much midfield time as he can handle just because he's a senior guy. So for all those reasons, you would definitely have to consider him.
Yeah, he's $419,500, break even of 30, increased $4,000 this week. So you haven't missed him if you didn't jump on last week, which I suggested people didn't, because in round 5 he scored a 37. But 6 injured in round 2, 37 injured in round 5. His other scores, 81, 133, 106, 113. I poo-pooed him. I still think in a year where everyone is getting injured, I don't want to bring in a guy that's injury prone. But if you're looking for value, looking for scoring potential, how long can you ride him? He's only in 808 teams right now.
Yeah, that could be one you bring in, and the rest of the year he just goes gangbusters. He could get injured within the next 2 weeks. So there's always that risk you have to consider. And if you're lower on trades, you might decide maybe to avoid those type of players and go for someone you know has a bit more durability. But again, injuries, you can't predict those. So
yeah, no, it's hard. But speaking of injuries, Aiden Bonner got subbed in the game, and Will Phillips came on and scored 3. So any chance of using him for cash gen is done. Not that he was doing that much anyway, but that's completely done. And Tom Powell, he played well again for us. You can probably look to hold him a little bit longer. I'm just trying to pull up his break even.
I think it's in the 70s this week. So it's around his average.
Yeah, it's around his average. So his break even is 56, averaging 77,
okay. So
projected to make 13 grand. We can hold on to him. We might even get a rookie to 400 grand, people. I don't want to get crazy. Tom Powell may get to 400 grand. Here's the concerning thing for me, Baz. 2 of the most traded in players so far this week are Connor Menadue at $270,000.
Yeah.
Who scored 105 on the weekend. And to be honest, while I used to call him Connor Menapoo, he's had 2 half-decent games. Since he came back into the side in round 6, 92, 32, and then 105. People are trading him in. I think that's insane. I think particularly in defense, when we actually have options, I wouldn't be bringing in Connor Menadue. The other person people are trading in is Tom Campbell. Ruck forward, $240,000.
Does it say where they're trading him in, like as a backup ruck or as a forward option?
I can't see that. I would assume
that's a Flynn trade.
I'd assume that's a Flynn trade. It doesn't make you cash though. Like he's 240 grand, break even of negative 31. It's a bit sidewaysy, but he is playing. He scored 73 last week, but he scores a bad 21, 41, 50, 73, 101. Are you going to ride Tom Campbell for the rest of the year?
Well, he seems fairly safe in that spot. So, again, cash generation, people get desperate, so they might consider that an option. Especially, we all planned on Flynn playing most of the year, and now he's not. So,
yeah, it's hard. Campbell's playing effectively as a permanent forward. And they've got Tristan Xerri, who I believe dominated. Well, hang on. Played better than the 120-point loss would indicate in the VFL. They've got some tools coming in. I'm not loving Tom Campbell.
No, it's not an option I would look at as a priority. But again, maybe teams are more set to mine and they can do those sort of things.
Okay, let's look at the other side of things. Collingwood, they had Caleb Poulter. I don't think that's how you say his last name. Plays second game. He scored 81 Supercoach points. He's a forward mid-swing with a basketball background, I think.
Let's just say he does anyway. He once picked up a basketball. That's enough for them to carry.
Yeah, he had to hit a basketball shot to get his debut. So I assume he has a basketball background. He looked reasonably good. I think he's going to be a very highly traded in player with that forward midfield swing. I think I prefer him to was it Jack Bytel we talked about before, or Burns? I can't remember which name. From St. Kilda.
Ryan
Burns.
Yeah, Burns.
I think I prefer him to him. Sorry, I prefer Poulter to Burns just because of the flexibility. More likely to stay on that side. They're awful at football. Jordan De Goey has been traded in a lot this round so far. He scored 118. He's priced sub 600K. He kicked 6 goals, 3 against North Melbourne. Is this someone we're entertaining at all?
I think that's your repeat of the Jake Stringer move, isn't it?
It's identical to the Jake Stringer move. He's 296K, break even of 6. He doubled his season average, scoring a 118, effectively doubled. So probably someone I'm avoiding. Other rookie news from the Collingwood side of things, they had McCreary struggled to score. Murphy, as we talked about before, had the concussion. Henry played for his second game, scored just the 32 points, so he's not someone that we should be looking at. Steele Sidebottom. I didn't think he deserved a 92 points from what he produced in the game. Is he a forward, if we're looking for upgrades, that we can look at?
Yep, definitely, I think.
Yeah, I think we're pretty... I don't feel great about looking at him. Break even is 117, so he's going to lose a little bit of cash, you'd think, but he's sub 500k. He has a history of scoring. He's going to average you at 95?
Yeah, that would be reasonable. I think any forward we can get that you could pencil in some midfield time potentially is going to be a one to look at this year.
Particularly people that we hope are going to play more than 2 games and not get injured.
Yeah,
and I just wanted to...
His last month hasn't been too bad, 93, 119, 85, 92. So, yeah, 95 average I don't think would be out of the realms of possibility for him.
Yeah, I think he's one to watch. I think if you brought him in, you know what you're going to get, and you're going to be reasonably happy with the return. Just don't expect huge scores from the past. Also, from Brody Grundy is doing captain-worthy things in terms of Supercoach, so he's always a good VC option. Seems to be... I mean, I was a little disappointed at the start of the year, but you look through his scores, I don't know what I was disappointed about. He plays footy really well.
Yeah, I think he's just one like Gord. Wherever he has a bad game, it gets magnified more than any other player just because you're so used to them scoring those captain scores. If they get a 90, it's like, oh, what's happened there? What went wrong?
Yeah, why is this spud in my team?
Yeah.
And Braden Mader and Jack Crisp, as predicted by Foz Daddy 2 or 3 podcasts ago, are tearing it up. All right, we're going to speed through these last few games because I'm running out of time very quickly. All right, Melbourne v Sydney, Baz. Demons beat Sydney 67-58. James Harms scored 132, playing essentially full mid-time. He's defence eligible. He's about 350k in Supercoach. People are looking to trade him in. I had him as a lock going into the season before he before he got injured. He struggled a bit last week when he came back, but is now, if this is something he can produce regularly, it's a bargain.
Definitely, yeah. The only thing I didn't like about him was the 24 handballs, but 2/3 contested possessions probably makes up for that, so...
Yeah, I think, and by the way, I said he returned last week. I meant into the VFL because I have him in a keeper league, so I watch his VFL games. He did enough to get into the side, though. 344k, cheap. Break even of 9. I'm not going to say don't pick him. I just think there's a lot of question marks over that midfield structure with a few players to come back in. I think Viney and who else am I forgetting? Big Jaw has a brother who got punched in the face. Angus Brayshaw's playing, but not playing well. I'd assume his output to increase and take away some of those points. But yeah, Viney, he's expected back around 10 or 11. So we're in round 9 now.
Yeah.
Something to keep in the back of your head when you're
looking at if you had the trades, maybe you could say, oh, that's a quick cash generation option.
Yeah.
2-3 weeks and hopes he does it, but that's risky because he's not one you could guarantee will score 100 plus for the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's risky as hell. Christian Petrarca owners, he got injured late in that game, but they've already come out and said he'll play through that. And James Jordan continues to make money for us, Baz.
Yeah, he's been one that's just been very underrated, I think, in terms of rookie selections at the start. Everyone's gone, oh, Tom Power, but Jordan's just... He had that tiny little lean patch around round 4 and 5, but since then he's been consistent in the 70s and 80s. So, like Tom Power, just ride him as long as you can.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny. He was one of those guys we were like questioning at the start of the year, or a few people were questioning, like, oh, can he stay in the team? There's so many players that are not in that Melbourne team. And like, he's just going bang. He's a beauty. He's an absolute beauty.
Yeah, he's tackling like crazy. And that's a great stat to have for Supercoach, especially the ones who don't get a ton of the ball. If you can add 5, 6, 7, 8 tackles to your game, along with 15 disposals, then you'll be golden.
Let's talk Sydney because McInerney and Warner are still in a lot of teams. Sorry, not McInerney. Goulden and Warner are still in a lot of teams. Goulden can't get near the ball. He just can't get near the ball. He scored 51 points. I think it was a generous 51 points. And then Warner had 61, which is a little bit more acceptable. What do we do with these guys?
Yeah, Golden's one I'm Golden looking at moving this week. Warner will stay a bit longer.
Yep, yeah, I agree. I think Goulden, he lost cash on the weekend. He's now sub 300k. If you can upgrade him or downgrade him, just get him out of your team. I think it's worth doing. And Warner, he's going to lose a little bit of cash this week, but I think we can probably afford to run him in our forward lines a little longer.
Yeah, he hasn't totally bombed out in the scoring. So a 60 is probably like the minimum I would want for a starting option rookie. And he's hit that consistently. So
I think interestingly from this game, Baz, Jake Lloyd things, 111 Supercoach points from 28 disposals. I actually think, and maybe I'm overdoing this, but I think they structure up a lot better in defense when Robbie Fox is in the side. And I only watch him because I have him in a draft league, in a keeper league. So that's the only reason I'm even aware of who Robbie Fox is. I think they structure up a bit better, and I think it's going to allow Lloyd to get a few more little seagull possessions. So my question to you, Baz, he scored 111. Callum Mills scored 145 playing purely midfield. If you had to choose between the two, who are we looking at targeting?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Callum Mills is so much like Isaac Heaney in that he's teased a few times, and that makes me wary a bit. So my initial instinct is to say go with the sure thing this year, because if you're taking risks other places, it might just be a case of adding another one is too much for your team to handle.
Yeah, and I feel the same way, and I'm pretty conservative, but my team's also really bad. So maybe we shouldn't. Maybe we should be targeting Callum Mills, and he's not that much more expensive than the start of the year. He's 14 grand more, gained 30 grand this week. He's $100 difference between Jake Lloyd and Callum Mills in price. Jake Lloyd had his second best Supercoach game of the year this weekend with a 111. Callum Mills has outdone that 3 times already with 130, 140, and 150 plus scores. So maybe his floor's a lot lower, but his ceiling's a lot higher. I think at the end of the day, they might end up neutralizing each other, but I just don't know who to suggest to the people who are listening.
Yeah, it's one you just need to weigh up the risks and think about how much risk you're willing to take in your team and how much you think your team can carry. If you feel your team is fairly set and you don't have options that you see as risky ones, then Mills would be the option. If you're saying, I'm going to bring in Mills and Harms in the same week, like that's probably a bit too much to consider.
Yeah. What do you want? Do you want 80, 140, 80, 140, or do you want 100, 100, 100, 100? Because that's what Lloyd's going to give you.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it probably doesn't matter. The only reason there's a question mark is because they're the same price. And they're both about to start going up in price. Mills' break-even is lower than Lloyd's, but I'd expect him to maintain his price for a bit. In conclusion, make up your own mind. Educate yourselves.
Well, you need to just take it on a team-by-team basis. I don't think that's a broad one you can pinpoint as, yes, this one's definitely the option.
All right, let's move on to Port Adelaide v Adelaide.
Oh, do we have
to? Annoyingly, Frederick came on for Houston. So he's ruined his cash generation with 18 points.
Yep.
That's going to be in his rolling average. So if you didn't jump on, not only has he gained price this week, he's going to barely gain price moving forward.
Yeah.
And that's if he stays in the team. But Houston did his shoulder. You might know how bad that is.
I think they've listed him as a test still for this week, but they could just, knowing you've got Frederick there to fill in, they could say, yeah, give him the week off. That's fine. Do what you did with Travis Boak the week before where you say there's no point risking this guy.
Yep. Coaches don't fear. Travis spoke. Look, he had a bit of a knee knock, came back from the quad injury. I think it was a quad. But he still had 28 touches, just couldn't impact from a super coach perspective. But that'll improve, I
Yeah,
hope.
it was a wet day and everything was high pressure and a bit sloppy. So it's just one of those games where you might get it 30 times, but just not efficiently.
From a Adelaide perspective, what do we do with the elephant in the room?
Yeah, he's got to go the way the Crows are playing because that quick ball movement into the forward 50 line they were getting at the start of the year where Tex could lead into marks is just completely evaporated. And if that's not there, he's not the one who will be able to take a pack mark or work in the big defensive scrums that are happening in Adelaide's forward 50.
And look, I don't think it's a Tex or Adelaide specific thing. I think teams have worked out how to defend key forwards a little better than the start of the year. He's suffering. You watch him better than me. Maybe that's just all gone to shit. But last two scores,
A bit of both.
42 and 29. Break even is now 178. And
Yeah.
I advised people last week, and I feel bad. He lost 45k, but I said unless you've got the trades, you can't trade him. Like we thought maybe he could average 90 for the year, but I feel like I've led people astray because he just absolutely has to go. He's going to be priced at like 300 grand in before we can blink our eyes.
Yeah, and then the point of trading him in is completely evaporated. Like when I first brought him in, it was the plan of he would jump up to 500, and then as soon as he hit that level, I would just sideways him to someone more reliable. But then all the other issues happened, and I couldn't do that. So I was hoping last week that Rory Sloane being back would maybe get the midfield moving a bit better for the Crows, but that didn't happen either.
Well, I am glad you mentioned him though, Rory Sloane, because if we talked M8 options before, he feels like the perfect M8 option, right?
Yeah, he's
523k.
one to consider for sure. They've got him, Laird, and Keys will just be run into the ground in that midfield. They will give them as much time as they can handle. So, and I think Matt Crouch is still probably another 4 or 5 weeks away.
Yeah,
So,
what's happening there?
oh well, that's just one of those groin injuries that they say could take 4 or 5 weeks, but then 4 or 5 weeks later, it's not any better. So,
I almost picked him at the start of the year. I'm glad that they released that news when they did because I had him locked away. Absolutely locked away. If you held James Rowe, well done. 81 super coach points from 13 touches and a goal. And Geordie Butts owners, he's 321 grand. His break even still 21. He's going to go up another 20 grand this week. Mate, he's been secretly the best rookie of them all.
yeah, I was not expecting much from him because he was just a lap for lap replacement for Talia, and Talia never scores more than 50, because he's fairly dour and what he does, he just stays on his man and maybe takes a mark and a kick out. But yeah, I've been really impressed with what he's done.
Yeah, we're going to be able to ride him if you're an owner for another at least 2 weeks. It's really good. It's really good to see. And if you are a James Rowe owner, you can still hold him. Break even now is 23, gain 2 grand, and the cash gen might touch wood kick off again from this point of view. Riley Tilthorpe, he's probably too expensive to consider now. If you jumped on last week, probably not great return.
No, he gets thrown around a bit. He'll go forward and then spend a little time on the wing. He's been kicking goals, which is good, but he won't find the ball more than 10, 11 times. And if he's not adding 3 or 4 goals to that, that's your score in the 50s, which isn't worth it at his price.
All right, let's swing into the next game. We've got, 3 games to go. We're going to have to power through these. Baz, I keep saying that. This wasn't going to be an hour-long special. It's going to be an hour-long special. Hawthorn got smashed by West Coast. Tom Mitchell had 41. He was my buy of the week last week. I wish I could have got him myself. He's not unattainable now, but as an underpriced midfield premium, he's probably a bloke that I'd be targeting pretty heavily if I was a coach out there.
Yep, for sure.
They also had Emerson Jekka play his second game for 31 Supercoach points. Don't think he's going to hold his spot. So we're probably going to have to look elsewhere for a rookie there.
Yep, that seems to be likely at this stage, I'd say.
And the other guys, the main guys that are worth touching on, some people jumped off Impey and Giath last week. Well, they both turned up. So the question becomes again, are they premiums?
They could be this year. I have both, and I am not considering trading either at this stage.
I have neither, and I wish I had both of them to not consider trading. West Coast, Andrew Gaff did it again. We talked about him last week. We probably don't need to touch on him, but 38 disposals. Tim Kelly couldn't quite back up his huge performance of 98. And Don Chead, who was underpriced at the start of the year, scored 119. But from a Supercoach perspective, they probably don't give us a whole lot, the West Coast Eagles.
No, they're pretty fairly well spread in the way they score, and it maybe one individual player pops up every week and it changes every week. So,
all right, agreed. They're not worth talking about, and that's mostly because we're running out of time. Western Bulldogs played Jordan Sweet. Again, his break-even is now negative 49. Can he hold a spot over Stephen Martin, Baz?
Who knows? It's Bevo Salad. He brought him in the first time and he played really well and then dropped him the next week. So performance doesn't seem to be the key indicator of keeping your spot in the side sometimes with Beveridge.
No, it doesn't. The Bont went huge, though. He scored 155. And I think if you were going to target him, you're going to target him. Caleb Daniel, who, Jesus, I was ready to absolutely demolish at 3/4 time. He scored 66 points or something like that in the final term and ended up with 100. And now people who bought him look like geniuses, and I'm really pissed off about it.
Yeah, that's like, why? What was the point of it? I'm not sure.
He was playing the forward pocket at times.
Yeah.
And they've come out and said, we're going to continue to evolve his role. So they still don't know where they're going to play him.
Yeah, but it's I've never seen anything, and I've watched him a lot because he played in South Australia as a junior, like that would, other than him being small, there's nothing about his game that I would say he's a small forward.
No, God, no. But small's in the name.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what Bevo's stuck on.
Yeah, he's just like fixated on the word small.
Anthony Scott and Lockie McNeil are still making cash for us, 85 and 81 respectively. I actually took Scott off to get Rose score and lost 4 points, which I didn't bloody think was going to be the case. But this, like Rowe, that this might kickstart their cash gen.
Yep, that would be the hope for both of them.
So I think as long as they're in the team, we can hold. On the Blues side of the ledger, Sam Walsh had his second I guess, not stellar 5-star performance. Scored 89 Supercoach points. Nothing to fear. But Zach Williams, I'm worried about a lot of players in this team, and Carlton are playing unfit players. Zach Williams is one of them. He's got 27 Supercoach points.
Yeah, that was not the greatest performance he's ever had.
The good news, though, is if you're a Luke Parks owner, if you jumped on him as just a loophole option, he's still in the team. He scored 59, and he's just going to continue doing that. I think he's going to stay in the team, keep scoring 50-odd points. But the one I wanted to mention to you was Sam Doherty, who is good, not in terms of football, but in terms of Supercoach, he's doing really good things again.
Yeah, like 24 kicks out of his 31 possessions. That's a huge tick. He's got 10 rebound 50s in there, 9 marks. They're all good indicators for him.
Yeah, if you'd jumped on when I first suggested on the pod before price changes happened in round 2, you would have been rewarded with 4 out of 6 tons and 198. So do as I say, not as I do. Right, in the final game, Baz, we're going to look at is the Brisbane v Fremantle game. Brisbane beat the Dockers by 2 goals, 95-71. 4 goals, that is. I can't do maths. Jared Lyons, who I've been talking about every single week, scored 145, but the greatest player of all time stepped foot on that hallowed turf up at the Gabba again, and he produced a 138. And I ask you, is Daniel Rich the best number 1 Supercoach defender when we look back at the season 2021?
Because it's you, yes, he will be.
Thank you. Hugh McCluggage was great again as well, and I'm going to keep apologising. I'm sorry that I told people not to pick him when he was 500 grand. I did not see this coming. He is now averaging 107 for the year. He is priced at 587k. He's now primo priced and averaging 123 over the last 5 games. I was wrong on that one. I'm sorry, community.
It's very big of you.
And Dane Zorko, very highly traded in, did what Dane Zorko does on the weekend. He had 21 disposals and scored 105 Supercoach points. And that's just going to be what he does, man.
Yeah, that'll be... pencil that in for the usual, hopefully.
And your boy Harris Andrews, still think he's a valid option pumping out 85s in 2021?
I would say no, because Darcy Moore's there who could do the same sort of thing. And he's probably 120k cheaper, just off the top of my head.
Yeah, he's about that. Yep.
Yeah. So for that reason and that reason alone.
All right, we look at the final game, or final team of the round. Nat Fyfe did Nat Fyfe things. He scored 122, and he can't kick for shit. He kicked 1 goal, 3.
Yeah, so he's not a champion of the game because he kicked 1 goal, 3. So those Brownlows he won, just put them in the bin, Nat Fyfe. They're worthless.
Yep, you suck, Nat Fyfe. You can't kick goals. I do feel bad for the Freo fans that keep saying, but when he does learn to kick him, well, it ain't happening.
Yeah, he must be a late bloomer at 29 and not learning yet.
David Mundy scored another ton. Age is just a number, baby. And Sean Darcy, who we could have got very cheaply quite some time ago, 114 on the weekend, 139 hitouts. He's just sort of rolling along. The rucks, I know obviously you had to go Gawn and Grundy to start the year, but the rucks are kind of rolling this year.
Yeah, they're not doing too bad. And he's one that's always been sort of one who could break out. I think he started the year at like 400k, which if you're not going Gawn and Grundy is probably the price you would maybe look at spending. And so if you did pick him, then yeah, good pick.
If you picked Tom Hickey and Sean Darcy at the start of the year, you would have saved about, I don't know, let's say 700 grand.
Yeah.
let's say 600 grand. And it would have cost you 600 points in total. But I reckon with 600 grand, you could have found 600 points real easily. That's one primo. In fact, you could probably make a bit more bank.
Especially with how the rookies are going too. If you could have changed like a iffy rookie to a primo, that would have been huge.
Hindsight's 2020. I know a lot of people started Tom Hickey, but we did not expect him to average 104. We didn't expect Sean Darcy to average 103, but just goes to show that maybe the conservative team isn't the way to go all the time. Having said that, next year I will tell you to pick Gawn and Grundy.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of, I didn't expect them to average that this year though, like Zeeble, Impey, Hickey, Darcy. If you nailed them all, then you're probably sit number 1 on the rankings.
Yeah, I just don't know if that's the future Supercoach or if this is an odd one in the mix.
Yeah, if it's the future Supercoach, it's going to be very frustrating because you could potentially put yourself out of the running within the first 2-3 weeks.
Well, I mean, I did by not selecting Jarman Impey, or Jack Zeeble, and the justification was, well, I'm getting an extra primo. Oh, oops. All right, Baz. I don't know if this has been any good, but I have had fun talking to you. We went real long, so apologies to the people I'm making wait.
At the start, we said this won't be an hour-long podcast, and I think we're up to almost an hour now. So
we are. Thank you for joining me. Everyone check out Baz's article around the grounds. Baz, where can people find you?
You can find me at Twitter at Baron Von Crow and at Instagram on the same.
Thank you for joining me, Baz. It's been a bloody pleasure.
Thank you for having me. I've had a lot of fun.
All right.